Have you checked the children? Your little mess
Hi, I'm Chucky. Wanna play?
Sometimes that is better.
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
Long days and pleasant nights, fellow travelers along the path of the beam. I am known on this level of the towers, Jaime and Fuego, and if it please you, join me here for a bit of palaver on Hail to Stephen King. And this is a topic that actually came up this past week. Obviously, Bevenidos and welcome to the horror show. And it's one that I had given some consideration to previously, and yet this is really kind of deep diving, but yet also expanding to just certain other things. And so this is probably going to be the most vloggy sort of dissertation that you guys have seen from me on this show. But so I often talk about the burden of expectation, and that most notably happens, I think, with creatives more so than anything. I'm a big sports fan, as you guys probably know. And, you know, whether, you know, Phoenix Suns, U.S. Soccer, Arizona State football, whatever it may be, there's a shelf life to your productivity, possibility of, like, really cementing your mark and all that other stuff. I guess, you know, with coaching, it's a little bit different, but as far as, you know, performance goes, you know, there's a window, you know, that like dwindles, obviously, unfortunately. And so, with creatives, it's a little bit different, whether we're talking my beloved Cy King, or whether we're talking, hell, like somebody like Ridley Scott, or Martin Scorsese, these guys who are still making prolific stuff, you know, very late in their years and in their careers and stuff like that. And so, there was a shout out to Frick, FR Nick. I'm sorry, man. I just wanted to give you proper consideration here because you were the one who got me like ruminating on this over the last few days specifically. And he is a longtime supporter of the show, and much love to him. He was actually gonna hang out for spring training, like pre-pandemic, and we were gonna get a drink or something and you know, chillax. But nonetheless, he was the one who really just veered me on this path of Stephen King and just going back to tropes, and I guess, you know, criticism, expectation, all that different stuff. I think when you've had a career as lengthy and prolific as Cy King's has been, and, you know, back to the aforementioned directors that I called out earlier, you're probably going to circle back to retelling certain things and, I guess, retreading the same sort of things from time to time. And so this is not going to be like a full-on trope video. Maybe I'll do that, you know, specifically later on. But yes, the gifted kid is a thing in Later, which is Cy King's most recent book. I really adored it, but in hindsight, take a step back, I can warrant Frick's criticism, man. You know, and in the fact that it's, once again, you know, young boy, and Cy King writes about children very well, specifically, you know, being a male himself, young kids and stuff like that, whether it's, you know, Hearts in Atlantis, or whether it's, you know, Jake Chambers, or, you know, like whatever it may be, there is something to writing what you know, and you do, unfortunately, like recircle back to that sort of stuff. It's like Scorsese, for instance, making a shitload of gangster movies. It's kind of like when you have a specialty and it's like a recipe that, you know, you're very well versed in, and, you know, you are confident in your consistent quality. Yeah, that's kind of a thing. And so, yes, King has circled back to that, unfortunately, numerous times. I mean, we go all the way back to The Shining, and then obviously, you know, Talisman, or, you know, Dark Tower, whatever it may be. So it's most definitely a thing. And obviously he writes as a teacher, as a writer writing about a writer, as meta as that is, you know. So there is that regurgitation, I suppose. But I mean, that's the thing. I feel like I'm significantly more forgiving than the average critic, in the sheer fact that I just try to be appreciative as opposed to negative, and that is something that happens all too often. Like, especially here in this like newfound internet culture where like the hate brigade is a pretty popular sort of thing. I mean, Angry Joe, that sort of thing. People like to shit on stuff, and I don't know. It's not really that satisfying for me. If there's something that rubs you the wrong way, something that creatively you feel like is lacking, diminishing, whatever. This was all spurred from Dark Tower 4 and my love of it, but the issue is that, yeah, it's long and meandering, and it's definitely one of those, if you like it, you love it, and if you are not a fan of just that massive expanded text, there's probably a reason why I encounter a lot of people in like the YouTube sphere and various other social medias talking about Psy King, where there's a lot of people who actually prefer the original version of The Stand as opposed to adding in that chunk of like hundreds and hundreds of more pages. So it's really like if you appreciate a director's cut of sorts and just the expanded vision, whatever. But there is an argument to be declared of if you think something is better when it's lean and mean and just really gets to the point, as opposed to like dilly-dallying. And so that's a very warrantable sort of thing. But just to circle back the wheel, obviously, guys, circling back. Man, I have to say, yes, King has most definitely returned to the same tropes all too often over the years, and whether it's like collective groups of kids, as the recent reread here for Hail to Stephen King, which was Dreamcatcher. I was just, all of the echoes of it were inherent and evident, and yes, he was like copped up on the pillsies and whatever after like basically dodging death, and so it's a little bit different in that regard. But going back to the well and just writing what you have a fondness for, what you have an affinity for. I actually thought later was a nice amalgamation of so many different previous King things, and including things that he had never really tackled properly before. And so for that reason, I was appreciative of it. And yet I can understand and warrant and validate and just be totally cool with criticism. I mean, once again, art is subjective, as I all too often say on this program. And so, yeah, I mean, kids, again, even with the Institute, right? That was Psy King going back to the well, and, basically, as I've said countless times on this program, I'm going to out Stranger Things, because those duffers, they derived all of their inspiration from me. It was also about like 50-50 King and Spielberg, if we're going to be fair about it. But I mean, nonetheless, it's an interesting sort of situation where you've been at it for so long, and that's where, I made the sports analogy earlier because of the fact that there is that window in time. The Last Dance with Michael Jordan, for instance, he can't play anymore. He doesn't, and like, regardless of whatever shape he may still be in. I've seen, with the Charlotte Hornets, he's still out there, shooting hoops sometimes as a co-owner and doing it and whatever, but it's like, you don't have it anymore. And so that's where, as a creative, it is a singularly different sort of process, and unfortunately, I condone just retreading those steps. It's like, okay, once again, back to Scorsese, the fact that, okay, The Irishman, but yet he had already done Goodfellas and Casino and like his fair share of mobster stuff. And so going back to it, I mean, if you have that fondness, if you have that affinity, I don't know, I feel like it is, like, if you still have it, and his prose was just very compelling, very just validating, honestly. I mean, it was a brisk, quick read that compelled me a lot more so than so many other things that he has done over the last few years, most notably, aforementioned Institute and, If It Bleeds. I mean, Life of Chuck was really the only thing in that tome that really just grasped me. But there was just going back to some of those tropes, some of those points and things of that nature. So, yeah, would you prefer somebody to still create, or would you like them to just kind of hang up their hat and stuff? I mean, it's honestly an interesting rumination because of the fact that with this show, for instance, I've been at it for over 250 episodes at this particular point, and I mean, there's still a lot to cover, but yeah, this, I don't know, this last year has most definitely been that sort of just peer around and just take a good look at yourself creatively and those that you look up to and stuff. And there's been, yeah, lots of different like bumps in the road over time. Hail to Stephen King once again is actually going to be switching to a midweek here in May. That's something to take into consideration and stuff like that as the channel continues to grow. But yeah, 2017, when it's like when King had his King-assance, as we have so affectionately called it. Yeah, it's like what's old is new sort of thing. And when you've been writing for what, like 40 plus years at this particular point, as he has, it's insane. It's absolutely staggering. Like, Carrie is about to celebrate its 50th anniversary here in a few years. It's insane. And so, yes, there will, as I feel like I keep retreading certain topics here, it just goes without saying that there is an inevitability to just going back and looking at what you've done and trying to forge forward. It's a fascinating process, honestly, and I'm not deterred by it. But yes, it definitely encompasses its own individual challenges, and I would imagine King feels the same way, man. You know, as long as you're having fun with it, embracing it, and just doing stuff. We all know Cy King does not do this for the money, despite the fact that he is ridiculously wealthy, but he is just admirably charitable, and there is so much that as far as like philanthropy and stuff like that, I mean, he cares about the arts, he cares very much about, like, he is as homegrown American as you could imagine. And so I feel like he would, like, he's gonna write till he is like in the grave. You know, he's not gonna hang up his you know, boots or whatever, you know, gunslinger status. I don't foresee that happening. And perhaps a byproduct of that is that, yes, we're gonna get certain stories that are reminiscent of things that we have read before, seen adapted before, or stuff that he has derived inspiration from. That, and I mean, hell, Salem's Lot, Dracula, obviously, you know. So yes, you are gonna see certain stuff where you're like, I kind of remember this, but that's where it's stuff like, God, Revival is probably, like Revival, Doomickey, stuff like that, that is singularly different in a very distinctive and drastic sort of, you know, semblance. I appreciate and applaud so much those situations where, you know, Cy King is making his presence known, but yet also attempting to do something a little bit different, as opposed to Back to the Well, as we have, you know, jokingly talked about before. So yes, if it's about a gifted kid, or if it's about a writer or a teacher or whatever, the stuff that he's walked in those shoes, the stuff he has experienced for a, like, massive length of time, I'm okay with it, you know. Especially, it's like, okay, they say there's nothing new under the sun. That is a trope that has been, you know, said all too often. There's only a few distinctive types of stories that can be told at this particular point. And I don't know, I find it fascinating that it's like, you know, playing a blues scale or something. It's like, if you can riff within those particulars, within those constraints, I feel like there is something just very admirable, and you know, just forge forward, man, forge forward. And so, yes, once again, this was not trying to be like some sort of rant fest or whatever, because yes, there are most definitely a immense amount of Cy King tropes, and there are echoes, as I said earlier, of his work in lots of other work, and most notably Later. I mean, the one thing I appreciated about Later, though, was that he at least acknowledged the fact that yeah, this seems a lot like The Sixth Sense. So he wears his influences on his sleeve for the most part, very much, like Salem's Lot. And so for that reason, I am grateful that he is still creating, and is the work as great as like when he was young and like the lean and mean sort of storytelling? No, he has experienced so much in this immense amount of decades of creating and refining and all of that other stuff. And so yeah, Hail to Stephen King is the moniker of this program for that particular reason, because of the fact that I admire anybody who continues to forge forward, who feels that compulsion, who is just, I mean, they love doing it. And yeah, money is nice, whatever, but just that sort of appreciation, that sort of just, I mean, taking satisfaction within it is really a just impressive and just awesome sort of thing. And so, yes, we will continue probably as, I mean, Billy Summers, obviously, we're kind of contemplating what that is going to entail, what it's going to be like. But yeah, man, it's still so cool, to use a very cliche term, that a creative is still doing it, is still respected to the regard that he is. And yeah, man, yes, later echoes a lot of other things, unfortunately, but I dug it. I did. And even after talking all that smack about Dreamcatcher, upon revisiting it, I found significantly more just respect for it, I guess. And so if I reread Bag of Bones again, I would probably at least find a little more so with that awesome blues singer and that aspect of the story compared to, I don't know. It's an interesting process of getting reacquainted with creativity that you initially, probably had a negative reaction to, but I feel like we can always find good within things if we really just take our time and analyze accordingly. That's not to say that it is good, but we can find that sort of appreciation. And I don't think anybody ever sets out to write a shitty story or make a bad movie. It's a labor of love. And yeah, unfortunately, after 4+ decades, man, you are going to retread those steps occasionally. And so that is just the main theme that I wanted to just double down on here, is the fact that yes, that's what makes stuff like Revival, for instance, as I've championed countless times on here, so special, where you're doing something relatively different than you have countless times, or something that doesn't necessarily echo one of your own works or somebody else's that you derived inspiration from. But yeah, I'm just happy and immensely grateful that my life has been enriched to the degree that it has been from Cy King's creativity. And yeah, if there's stuff that reminds me of other things, hey, it's totally cool, because he always puts his distinctive spin on it. And for that reason, I can't say a grande gracias enough. And so yes, not an immense amount of stuff here. This is just very much riffing off the cuff. You guys typically see me with like notebook and all this other stuff, but yeah, man, I just wanted to just pour my thoughts out about this particular process, and the fact that I am just thankful to have this voice, this outlet, and this opportunity, and even more so the fact that all of you seem to care and think it's cool. So I extend the grande gracias. I've been Jaime Fuego. You can find more on all social media sectors like Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. Here on YouTube, I do have a personal channel. I'm doing some Oscar reaction stuff this upcoming weekend for the nominations, which just came this past Monday. Interesting process, and obviously in a year where so much cool creativity was mentioned and yet didn't make the mark, unfortunately. But hey, it's a crowded field, man, and I am very much looking forward to tossing that up proper. And yes, obviously like, share, subscribe here on The Horror Show. Shout out to Maddie, who was responsible for me and the last couple videos that I did all about the unproduced scripts of The Stand. 3 of them in total, as a matter of fact, so that was a cool process. And just basically everybody on the Hail to Stephen King Facebook group, it is a privilege and an honor to have palaver with you, even if I'm not there on the daily. It's very cool to see that it continues to function, and just, I mean, all of the calf amongst all of you is a delight, and just so rad status. So yeah, that's going to be the end of the proceedings. Once again, Roadwork from the Bachman books is going to be the book of the month. First Saturday of April, we are going to be going live, and that's actually, yeah, that is going to commence the end of Hail to Stephen King, at least on Saturdays, as it moves in May to a different date that Cecil and I are still like kind of tinkering with and stuff like that. But once again, humbled, honored, y'all are awesome, and until the Wheel of Ka comes around once more, hasta luego, San amigos, constant readers, say thank you for this palaver with you today. Hopefully we get to share more of it sooner rather than later, and until then, remember to stay scared and read Stephen King. Roadwork, man. Pretty good.